Hey guys, Craig here. My new tripod is on its way. Until then, I'm going to be holding my phone for my videos. I got this in the mail along with my FOS strobe the other day. You can see it is branded as ELK Products Incorporated, and the model is the ELK-110 Voice Siren, whose maximum speaker load is 4 ohms. And there's your audio outputs right there. Basically what this is it's like a tone generator, tone/message generator for security systems. You have up here to control it. You have five different inputs. You have obviously your negative, and then your 12-volt voltage, quote-unquote auxiliary power. And in the middle here, you have three different, what you would call, triggers. You have a fire trigger, and then you have a positive burglar and a negative burglar. Basically, these control what messages and tones are generated by this thing. You also have 4 jumpers on here, 3 of which are labeled and 1 that is not. We'll start with jumper 1 here. Maybe we will, if this will focus on it. It looks like that it's as good as we're going to get. JP1, siren only on burglar alarm. JP2, siren only on fire alarm. And then JP3 down here, if you cut it, it goes and does only voice for fire and burglar alarms. And then on the back here is your unlabeled jumper, and that if you cut that, this thing will only produce Spanish messages. You have a 4-way dip switch down here, which controls kind of what this thing outputs. Switch 1 here, if you open it up, it produces a buzzer tone on the burglar alarm. Otherwise, if it's closed, I believe it produces like a kind of like a yelping tone. Switch number 2, if you open it, it does both the English and Spanish messages. Switch 3, if you open it, is the volume step. I'll explain what that is in a bit. And then switch 4, if you open it, does millimizer, and I'll explain what those are in a little bit. A note to the seller of this item, if you're watching and you know that I bought your item, this does not have the carbon monoxide trigger like you kind of described that it did. This chip here is version 4, revision 4 rather. Revision 5 is the one that'll have, I believe, 6 inputs here instead of the 5. The 6th one obviously being for carbon monoxide alarms. Yeah. So do kind of keep that in mind if you're looking to buy one of these. There are many different versions. Version 5, I believe, is the latest version, and that's the one that has the carbon monoxide outputs. And on the back here also, along with the Spanish jumper, you have 2 little stickies to mount the chip inside your panel. Here's a little instruction sheet. Voice driver, ELK-110 with temporal coded bell. Features 2 input channels, burglar and fire, siren only, voice only, or a combination. Bilingual voice, English or Spanish, temporally coded bell. And here's the 3 little trademarked options. First up, the millimizer. This option reduces current draw for controls with limited alarm output power. What this also does is it'll and it won't do it by much. It'll lower the volume of the audio that's output. Not by much though. Combo trigger, option for single alarm output controls, which have the option of steady for burglar and pulsing for fire, like what my Safewatch does. It outputs a steady amount of current on the NAC if a burglar alarm is received, and it'll pulse that output if a fire alarm is received. And the volume step. The option starts the siren sound at a low volume and gradually increases the volume to maximum over a 90-second time period. Most commonly used if you don't want to really startle anybody if the alarm's triggered. Don't remember what exactly it starts out at in terms of decibel rating. Anyway, a little overview in here too. Channel inputs, they're your burglary, a positive input trip, and a negative input trip, which makes it compatible with most control panels. On controls that have a single alarm output with a pulsing option for fire, both the BA plus and BA minus inputs provide combo trigger, which automatically switches from burglar to fire if either input is activated with a 1/2 to 1.5 second pulsing voltage. Most security panels that you're going to see will have something like this. Where you'd have to use the burglary inputs with the combo trigger to control what message is put out. And then your fire input, that is a positive only trip. And down here is all the voice messages that it does. So burglar alarm, it does a 3-second tone, roughly at about, let's say 1020 hertz, I think. And it says that intruder, leave immediately. And that's followed by either a warble or a pulsing buzzer sound. Again, that's controlled. What tone is output is controlled by dip switch 1. Fire input in English, it says fire, leave immediately, and then it does three rounds of the temporally coded bell sound, and then it repeats that. And down here is your the Spanish variants of both messages, and then down here is your pulsing input, which it produces that same 3-second tone that the burglar alarm first produces, and then it starts doing the fire input, or the fire message, and the temporal coded tone. Then down there's your little switch and jumper options. And then there's a little note down here that says, if you want Spanish only, you have to cut that jumper that's on the back, and then you have to leave switch 2 open. So switch that down to open it, and then on the back there you would cut that little tiny jumper thing right there. I don't need any Spanish alarms because I live in Illinois. There's not very many Spanish-speaking people around here, or I should say, like, strictly Spanish speakers. Let's go ahead and look on the inside here. Inside is the actual installation instructions. Down here is what you're going to really want to pay attention to with this for combo triggers. On the left here is the one that does the switch positive alarm output for Cadex, NAPCO, and Ademco panels. If you haven't figured it out already, that's a rebranded Ademco Vista panel. So I have to use this one here. Your black lead and your yellow lead are going to be hooked up to the alarm output terminals. And in order to be able to use the combo trigger, you have to hook up the auxiliary 12-volt input, which is the red lead, up to the auxiliary 12-volt output on the panel, which would be the same auxiliary power positive power that your keypad would be hooked up to. And then over here is basically the same kind of idea, but you have the negative. You're using the negative terminal. So with this one, DSC panels mainly. DSC 832 is what they list down here. Your negative terminal, or your negative lead, is going to be hooked up to the auxiliary negative terminal. BA negative is going to be hooked up to the negative bell, and then 12 volt positive is going to be hooked up to the positive bell output. And then over here it kind of explains how to wire your speakers. So anyway, it's enough of me talking about this. I'll go ahead and get that thing hooked up to the panel, and we can do some testing.